There we go. And now we're recorded. So we're gonna go ahead and dive right in here. Today we're going to be making vegetarian pasta primavera. I'm gonna share my screen here so that we can look at the recipe together. I will be honest and say that I have not made this recipe before, so it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve with you guys. But honestly, I think that's some of the most fun ways to cook. I have made primavera before, just not this recipe. So a lot of the reason why I chose this specific recipe is because I'm sure you all have bared witness to the fact that we had a major winter storm last week. And when going to the store, there's no meat on the shelves. There's no refrigerated milk, no refrigerated eggs, and it can be intimidating to know a meal to cook. So I wanted to bring you something that was on the shelves, at least at my HEB. Hopefully they'd be at your local grocery store too. So what we're making today will have approximately 4 servings. It is 392 calories, 21 grams of protein, so you're getting a great source there. Fat's about 12 grams, and carbohydrates are 55 grams. The ingredients are listed here. So we're looking at a cup of peas, 2 cups of broccoli, and I'm going to show you actually. I'm using frozen peas. These are just the HEB one. We're going to do 2 cups of broccoli. I have a head of broccoli here, but you could buy florets or use frozen. Excuse me. Sliced mushrooms. I've already sliced several mushrooms, but I bought whole buttons, so I figured I'd just show you guys how I clean them and cut them, and we'll do that here shortly. A red and green pepper, which should be about 2 cups. We're going to do olive oil. I'm going to show you my fun way of cutting an onion. People tend to like this trick. We're gonna mince up some garlic. The butter that we're using today is actually margarine. I'm using this brand, unsalted. Let's see, evaporated milk, a cup of that, 3/4 cups of grated Parmesan cheese. We're gonna do whole wheat pasta so we can get that extra fiber in there, and a parsley garnish. So we'll walk through the steps together, but I want to go ahead and let's get started chopping so that, sorry, that's my husband. I didn't realize I was still sharing my screen. That's my husband and my daughter. All right, and we are gonna go ahead and get started. Are there any questions before I start chopping? Okay, I'm taking the silence as a no. All right, and so with the mushroom, we'll start off with this, just so I can show you. You don't want to submerge and run them under water because they're very absorbent, and then it's going to take forever for it to cook. So you take a paper towel, you wet them, and you wipe them. A good way to avoid having to do this step with every single mushroom is just going ahead and buying them sliced. I just really like the taste of a fresh mushroom. So that's one of the reasons why I prefer to do this. And then I'm just taking my knife and I'm just slicing it. As you notice, upside down, it makes it more stable. So there we are with this. Okay. And because it does kind of like bounce back at you, what I'm doing, I don't know if you can tell with the technique, but I'm doing like a little mini slice at an angle, and then I'm pushing down. That's going to help that mushroom cut easier and not just flatten it, basically, mush it. All right, for our zucchini, we are going to cut off the end here. I've got the trash can right behind you guys, so excuse that. I'm going to cut off this other end. And then I'm going to cut this in half. And then I'm going to cut it in half again. A little trick based off of how much time you have to cook is that the smaller you cut things, the faster they cook. That's because you're increasing the surface area to where the heat can get to it. So I am taking that into consideration that we only have an hour together. So this should be about a cup, as mentioned earlier. This actually might be a little under. You may need to do like two zucchinis. It just depends on the size of your zucchini. All right, garlic. You guys, I love to cook some cut garlic. You can buy it pre-minced. I just like it fresh. And you can really take out some anger because you can karate chop and hit it. I like to use my knife. And so I put it like this. I have my blade facing down, and then I take my palm of my hand and go, bam, smack it. It's fun. It's therapeutic. I think cooking can be very therapeutic. And then I've already actually smashed the other ones, but I wanted to make sure and just show you guys one. And then I'm just peeling off the skin here and apparently adhering my body to it. So there are those, and it called for 2. Now, when I'm cutting, I'm keeping my fingers like this. If you can see the way that I'm doing that, it's going to prevent my fingers from being cut and having, an injury. So we're just going to go ahead and dice that up. And then you can keep cutting it as small as you want. You just regroup it and then go to town. Garlic's ready. Bell pepper. I find that the easiest way to cut a bell pepper is you cut this upside down as well. So you're going to cut it in half, and then I'm going to move my blade so that it doesn't hit the stem here on the side. And it's a lot less messy. And I'm just going to go around bell pepper. And then minimal waste, which is also a bonus. I'm going to cut this out. Should also preface by telling you guys that I washed all the veggies before you guys came on. I've got some seeds in here, so I'm just going to rinse it out. And then a lot of people also will cut your bell pepper like this, but whenever you do that, they snap whenever you cut it. So turn it with the membranes facing you, and you're able to make a smoother cut, and it'll actually cut and not just like snapping. And I'm going to cut this in half just because it's got to fit into a strainer. Okay. There's that. And then this. You can also use your hands and just rip this out, but for some reason I'm being fancy and I'm using my knife. Okay. Now I'm going to cut these in half. So basically what I did was I had a small red bell pepper and a small green pepper. I chopped the small red pepper already. Now I have the green pepper, and I have my veggies. I'm dumping them into a strainer here that is going to be suspended over a pot that I have boiling with water right now. So now I'm cutting the broccoli. And I'm just going to break them apart a little bit more to make them smaller. Okay, so these are going to take a little while to steam, and my basket's actually a little bit fuller than I thought it was, so it may take even a little bit longer. So we're going to keep checking on these. We're still chopping, so I'm going to go ahead and put these in the suspended over the pot. I will be right back, and I will show you whenever we move over to the my stove. But I want to go ahead and get those started steaming because they're going to take a minute. Whoop, lost one. All right, next I'm going to show you the onion trick. So when you cut an onion, you want to cut off, there are 2 parts. You've got the root and then this part that I always forget the name of it. We're going to cut this part off of it first. And then we're going to cut down the middle straight through the root. It's important that you cut it this way because it holds the onion intact whenever we do the rest of our steps. If you do that backwards, your onion's going to slip around. So now I'm going to just take this first layer of the onion skin and break it off with, hopefully not crying. Okay. So first step, I'm going to go through and I'm going to cut the onion like this. I'm going to keep my hand on the top so that the blade is never perpendicular or parallel with my hand. But I'm also not going to cut it all the way through. I'm going to introduce this like that. Now, based on how far you space it is how wide or thick, if you want to look at it that way, your onion's going to be. That is my Outlook telling me I should be cooking a class. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to slice it this way. This is going to be the formation of how you chop the onion. Notice that my hand is opposite of the knife at every point. All right. So next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go parallel with the root, and I'm just going to dice it here. Can you guys see that? There. Just realized I should pin myself. Okay. Sorry about that. All right, and we only need half a cup, so this should be plenty. All right. There's that. All right, and now we make the move over to the stove. Sorry, it's just the layout of my kitchen, so I want to make sure that you can see. Okay, so first, I want to show you how I have this suspended. So I have my pot, there's water boiling in here, and I have my veggies, and they're just hooked onto the top of it. Some people have vegetable actual steaming baskets, and that's great if you have one. I don't. So I have that on the highest heat possible. And according to the recipe, we've got that going. We're gonna heat olive oil and cook onion and garlic. All right, so I've got my pot going here. Let me turn on the light. It'll be easier for everyone to see it a bit. Okay. Okay. Got 3 monitors happening there. Okay, so olive oil, we're doing a teaspoon, and I wrote, yeah, a tablespoon, which is roughly the size of your thumb. So I'm gonna dump that in here. And I'm gonna add in that onion and the garlic that we just chopped. So while we are cooking this, I wanted to tell you some of the reasons why I was so excited about sharing this recipe with you, aside from the whole winter storm thing. So the pasta that we're using, by using a whole grain pasta, we're getting added fiber, which helps with heart health. We're also got the mushrooms, which, excuse me, the mushrooms, you can buy them with a vitamin D treatment, which is an added bonus because with most Americans, we are vitamin D deficient. So that's a great way to get some vitamin D into your diet, in addition to going outside and getting some sunlight. It also has different components of it that are really great for immune health and heart health as well. And then we've also got the bell peppers, which basically are an antioxidant powerhouse, if you ask me. Like, they are just so good for your overall health and immunity. So anytime I can throw those into a recipe, I pretty much do. All right, so I'm going to show you guys as this is cooking. We're looking for the onions to become translucent. And depending on what type of pot you have may dictate a little bit of how much olive oil you will have to use. Because I have these stainless steel pots, I may have to add a little bit more. I'm going to watch it. But I'm looking for them to be clear. So as you can see right now, they're still very white, just like whenever I induced the first, like whenever I first put them in the pot. Let me go ahead. Cook onions, go translucent. We're going to add frozen peas and steamed vegetables. Our steamed vegetables are still cooking, but once they are done, we will go for it. I am going to add a little bit more olive oil. It's just going to help them cook up a little bit more. This might be like 2 tablespoons total. Not what I added wasn't 2 tablespoons. 2 tablespoons total what's in here right now. Oh yeah, I can already tell that that's cooking more because the oil is bubbling around you can see how the oil is cooking right around me. And then I'll show you what I mean by translucent as well. So far, do I have any questions or commentary? Anything I'm doing or tips that you like? It's okay if you don't.
Hey, sorry, this is Patty. I could not unmute for a while, so I had to get out and get back in again. So I wasn't totally not ignoring you, but no, I like the way you're showing us how to cut things. That's very good. I like that.
Thank you. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm a grad student. Oh, the garlic and the onion do smell so good. I think that you can have so much. And like, you can never have enough garlic and onion, in my opinion, is what I'm trying to say. But back to my original thought was, I told you that I was a grad student and I did my undergrad at Texas State as well. And one of the things I did for a research project was I learned that the average American has approximately 20 to 30 minutes total to grocery shop. And then on top of that, they have about 15 to 20 minutes to cook. So one of the biggest barriers to being able to cook is, one, obviously confidence in it. And part of your confidence is your knife skills and how you're able to chop things. So I'm happy to hear that you like that I'm showing you those things. And that is the reason why I'm showing them, is because I'm all about like maximizing our time, because I know I'm busy. I'm sure you guys are too. All right, I'm going to show you some good and some bad with what's happening in here, just so you know. Well, not bad, just I would say less desirable. All right, so if you can look and see, I'm starting to get the clear translucence, which is great. But I'm also getting, I can't get any now. It's hard to see. But I'm also starting to get some browning. I don't know if you can see that or not. But basically, browning means that my pot's too hot. So I'm going to turn it down a little bit. Because at this point, if you brown your onions and your garlic, your food's going to taste burnt. So you just want to sweat it, and it's going to continue to cook as we do other things to it. It's pretty, they're getting pretty translucent. Give it just a little bit more. I'm going to check on our steamed vegetables because, like I said, I am worried about them being so, yeah, they're going to cook a little bit longer. Another trick. Oh, go ahead.
How long do you normally steam them in that that way right there in your pot like that?
Well, it depends on the quantity that I'm putting in there. So the amount that I have, it's probably going to take the full like 10-15 minutes the recipe said. But if there's less in there, it cooks faster. Worst case scenario, if I don't like how fast they're cooking, I'm going to throw them in a bowl with a little bit of water, cover them up with some saran wrap, and I'm going to put them in the microwave. They're going to be steamed. They're still going to be steamed. They're going to retain nutrients, which is great. So it's really which one's going to be quicker at this point. But I share that just so you know that if you don't want to do this method, you can do it in the microwave as well.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, I love the question. Thank you. All right, this onion, I'm going to call it done. As you can see, it's still it's browning more. So that to me is telling me add other stuff in there. Let me do the next step and then I will address, I see that I have some comments in the chat. So let's see. All right, I'm adding in my frozen peas. And what else am I doing? That's it. I'm just adding in my frozen peas. Okay. So this is a 16-ounce bag. I'm basically lived in the nutrition world being a nutrition grad student. So that means that I'm super nerdy and I just know that 16 ounces of frozen peas and I need 1 cup means that I'm going to put half this bag in here. I'm going to go ahead and add in these frozen peas. That's gonna, because they're frozen, it's also going to help slow down the rate of that cooking on my onions and garlic. All right. And we'll mix the steamed vegetables in there once they're done. It says to do that, but mine aren't ready. And then we're going to start making the sauce here in a second. So let me take a moment to address some of those chats, see what's going on in there. I cheat and use Pampered Chef garlic press and chopper for the onions. Oh, that's fancy. I don't have that. I do have a garlic press from Pampered Chef. That's great. I'm a big fan of garlic presses as well. Can you explain why you're steaming instead of just tossing everything in with the onions and garlic? Is it for health benefits? Honestly, no, it's because that's what the original recipe called for. As far as health benefits, I think you're really going to retain about the same in both of them. I think that if I were to put them in here with this as they were raw, they're probably not going to cook as evenly because the water is, the vapor from the steam is going to cook it faster. So either everything's not going to cook at an even rate, and then I'm going to have like crunchy bits, soft bits, and it's going to be uneven that way. Otherwise, if you wanted to put everything in here all at once, I would say just make sure that you chop everything up so that it's an even width. So you would need to have everything roughly pea size. I hope that answers the question. If not, drop another comment in the chat and I will address it. Okay, these peas are looking great. My veggies are mostly steamed. I'm gonna see what happens when I put a fork in them. My bell peppers are good. And the reason why I'm saying they're good is because I can put a fork in them. My broccoli is good. I can tell that they need to cook a little bit longer because here, I don't want to get water in there. You can see there's a white center in there. That means it's not cooked all the way. But it's cooked enough, I think, to move over here. But it's not going to stop cooking because that pot's hot. And then the mushrooms I can tell because they're pliable, they're bendy. Okay. I would say, now that I'm thinking about it and circling back into it, I know this wasn't the original question, but I would steam over boiling because there are B vitamins in the mushrooms and in the peppers. And those B vitamins are very sensitive to well, water displacement basically. So a lot of your not a lot, but you're going to have nutrient displacement in the water, and then we're not going to drink the water. So that's, I wouldn't boil them, I guess is what I'm saying. Okay, this looks great. I'm going to move this to a back burner with a lid, just so I can continue that steaming process. And we're gonna do our sauce. How are we doing on time? We're good on time. I'm gonna turn this to a low heat. I need to turn that back burner on. Okay. My water's still boiling from earlier, so I'm gonna put my pasta in here. I understand also that whole wheat pasta is a acquired taste, that not everyone may like it. So some other types of pasta that you could get are like a chickpea pasta, so you get some added protein. They do have some fiber in them too. I'm just checking to see how, am I using the whole thing? No, I'm using about half this. Okay. You could also use there are different noodles that have an added fiber content to them. You may see them, like one brand off the top of my head that I can think of is Dreamfields. They add fiber to their pasta, but just that component of having extra is good. I also know this is sacrilege to some people to break it in half, but it's habit at this point. I have a toddler, and then I have to cook it, so and cut them up. So sorry if that offended you.
No, I do that as well.
Oh, okay. Well, great. That makes me feel better. Thanks. I'm going to go ahead and cover this up just to keep that heat in there. And I do not have my nut. Let me grab that. And it was a tablespoon, teaspoon. I think it's a teaspoon. So a teaspoon would be about half of a tablespoon. That's technically not right, but close enough. So that's what I'm adding in there. Ooh, learning opportunity. Okay, so you see how I dropped my butter? Hold on, I can't see what you guys see. All right, you see how I put my butter in here and it started like bubbling super quickly and it started foaming? Oh, you can't see. Ah. All right, you see how it's foaming? The foaming means that my pot's too hot. It's a little obvious because of the sizzling sound that you can hear right now, but sometimes you don't hear that sizzling sound. But if it's foaming, that is an indication that your pot's too hot and you really want to reduce the heat, which I'm going to take my own cue there. I didn't do that. And then the next step for the sauce is I already have the low fat evaporated milk in here. It was a cup of that. And then 3/4 of a cup of Parmesan cheese. I just have it all dumped into one thing because it's easier for me that way. And we're gonna throw that in there. Apparently make a little bit of a mess, but that's cooking, right? And I need to start mixing my mixing mix. You want to continuously mix it just because it's gonna you don't want it to glob up on you, basically. Ooh, I don't have one currently, unfortunately. I had to get rid of it. But the traditional pasta scoopers that they look like this, and then they have a hole in the middle of them. and you put them into the pot and it helps mix your pasta up. Those, that hole in the middle is a serving size of pasta in the middle. So if you're making pasta and you want to know you want one serving size, and then you can do just one. But if you have two, like whenever I first got married to my husband and I had no idea how much pasta to make, you put a stack of dry noodles into the middle of the claw, and that will tell you two serving sizes.
Oh my gosh, I had no idea.
Oh, good. I'm glad I could help with that. But also keep in mind that like a serving size, you may want two serving sizes or whatever per person, but just something to help out with.
Well, it's also always good to have leftover pasta too. That always heats up nice, and so making more is always good.
Yeah, I agree with you. I always cook way too much pasta and way too much rice, because then I can use it throughout the week for different things.
Yes, definitely.
Then I make the rest of my week a little bit easier, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'm still stirring this. What I'm looking for is to see if it's going to thicken up a little bit more. I don't necessarily want it into a rolling boil, is what some people call it. So like bubble, 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 bubble. But I am looking for a little simmer so that there might be like a bubble pop here and there. I'm not seeing any of that, so I'm going to turn it up a little bit. And I'm going to mix my pasta, because if you don't while it's cooking, it gets all stuck together.
Do you ever put a little bit of olive oil in with your pasta to keep it from sticking?
I do. I go back and forth on that. I tell you what I don't do is a lot of people put, I don't know where this started, but a lot of people put salt in their water to make it boil faster. It doesn't do that. It won't, but you can add salt to your pasta or whatever you're cooking that's a starch or a grain or carbohydrate, because the salt in the water will actually make it cook faster. So I will add some salt. And the amount of salt depends on how long I'm putting something in the water for. So I do a little bit of salt for pasta because it's going to hang out in there for like 10 minutes. I do a lot of salt if I'm like flash cooking a vegetable or something.
Interesting.
Yeah. I used to put olive oil in pasta, and then I lived overseas. And whenever I lived overseas, the Italians don't put olive oil in their pasta while they cook it. And obviously they love their pasta. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I guess it depends on what dish I'm making on whether or not I put olive oil in there or not. I don't really have a rhyme or reason to it.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Well, and then you were in Italy. Is that what you said?
I was in Spain actually, but I got to travel to Italy. It was a great experience. Lots of fun.
I was going to say that they actually make their own pasta, don't they?
I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
I think they're notorious for that.
Yeah.
So my sauce is starting to thicken up, and the reason how I can tell that, let me try and do this so you guys can see the light more. How I know that it's thickening up now, because obviously if I pick it up, it's not creating any stringies or anything like that, is that one, it's adhering to my whisk. The other thing is that as I'm moving it, I can see little lines. I don't know if you guys can, but I can see little lines where it's moving, where my whisk is moving through it. So that makes me happy because I want a nice creamy pasta. I used thin spaghetti. Normally I like thick spaghetti, but I used thin spaghetti today because I knew it would cook faster. Because again, like I said with the vegetables at the beginning, the smaller you cut something or the smaller you have something, the faster it's going to cook. And that's because you have more surface area that the heat can get to. This sauce just thickened up like so quick. I'm actually going to turn the heat off on it. Like it went from questionable to beautiful so quickly. And I think my pasta noodles are done. And a trick for that, aside from like throwing one in your mouth and like being like, ah, oh my gosh, it burnt my face, is whenever you pick it up, does obviously it bend over, but are your noodles sticking to each other? So you see how this is like, whoop,
Oh, interesting.
I'm not gonna throw that back in there because I just touched my hand. But yeah, it's one way to do it. It's a lot easier with the little pasta hangy thing that I was talking about.
You don't agree with the whole throwing it on the wall and see if it sticks?
Well, I'm the one that has to clean the kitchen, so I don't do that. But if someone else is in your kitchen, you go for it.
I don't normally do that, but I just think that's funny that some people do. Maybe I don't know.
I'm sure that some people do. I know that I did some questionable things when I first started learning how to cook, and I'm sure that was one of them. I'm gonna step out of frame and I'm just gonna drain my water. That's all I'm doing. And then I'm probably gonna take everything and combine it back into this pot because it's the biggest pot I have. So give me a moment. Oh, before I do that, something that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run some room temperature water over it while I'm straining it, because that's gonna help it from all sticking together. So kind of addressing the whole, do I put olive oil in it thing? If you run the room temperature water over it, it kind of does what the thought process of olive oil would do. So.
And room temperature, not cold. Or hot.
So if you're in a commercial setting, you dip it in ice water. You do that normally because of the fact that you're going to be storing it for later. You reheat it. But because I'm going to be going immediately into eating this, that's why I'm going to do room temperature. Otherwise, I would do ice cold.
Okay.
All right, I'll be right back. Great question, though. I love these questions.
I think that's what can you hear me? You're okay. That's what I like about cooking, is all the give and take of, this works good for this doesn't, this is what I need to do to make this better,
Oh, I agree. And it's also I
like that part. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree, because there's so many different like flavor palettes out there and different things too. So like what I might add to one thing, someone else would be like, no, you should do it the other way, which I've been so blessed to, travel. And like my husband is he's Dominican. So that's an entire different like nationality or like type of food that's been introduced. So it's amazing the different ways that you can approach cooking and still have a phenomenal product. Sounds like I am burning this a little bit. These are definitely done, so I don't know if you can see them. So that worked out great.
That just looks good by itself to eat. I'm sorry.
It does look so good. It does. I left that burner on. Hold on. All right. So on the recipe PDF that I shared with you guys, I referenced the Mayo Clinic on the bottom of it, because honestly, this recipe is very similar to it, but I had to add peas. Like, to me, it's not a pasta primavera without peas. And then it boosted the protein content, which is great, because there's not an animal source in here. All right, this looks so good. Oh my goodness, and it smells good too. I'll let you know my thoughts on the fat. Here, I'm going to take a bite here shortly, and I'll let you know my thoughts on whether or not we should have added seasoning or not, because I'm curious personally. All right, hold on, let me move this. Okay. All right. I don't know. Oh, you guys can't see? I thought you could see. I'm so sorry. I'm still over here talking. So this is what it's looking like in the pot. It's so good. And if I had that little gripper thing, it'd be mixing better. But, we've already established that I made a mistake there. Let me get a plate. My husband's excited because this is lunch for him too. I see him over there smiling. All right, no, I'm going to use a fork. So if you don't have one of those little gripper things, go for like a fork or a salad gripper. So I've got this thing. I'm going to do this. I don't know why I grabbed the smallest plate that I have. I don't know. Let's see here. This is a lot of food too for.
Is the sauce enough for all the vegetables that you have in there?
I absolutely think so. I think that's going to be a preference thing too, because I know that a lot of Primaveras, like you would do the noodles and then you would layer the sauce on top of it. This is just a different way of approaching that. So let's see here. I'm going to try and get a little bite of everything. And I don't know if anyone here watching has a toddler like I do, or a new eater. But if you do, whenever you serve them pasta, instead of using a fork and knife to cut up your pasta, take your scissors, your kitchen scissors, and cut it up. It is the easiest thing. It's life-changing. It's frustrating to cut it with a knife. Sorry, I'm a little afraid to bite into this. It's steaming. It's really good. I would add a little bit of salt, I think. And I think I'm not missing the flavor of the Primavera. Like there was a question earlier. It's very coated onto the pasta, so I don't feel like it's missing. This is a preference thing. I would probably double the amount of garlic. So I did 2 cloves. Me personally, for my palate, I would do like 4 or 6 because I like a really garlicky pasta. Yeah, those are the only changes I would make. This is really good. The steaming of the vegetables help it not to turn into mush into your mouth. So it really stands apart from the pasta. I think that like if you were to boil it or make it more mushy, that it would just like kind of blend into the pasta and not be as enjoyable. But this is really good. Your teeth are biting into different layers of the pasta, and then you're getting that coating of the Primavera sauce. It's really good, guys. You should definitely try this. I'm gonna keep it in my recipe bin that I have. So any questions? Anything else before we break? Oh, hold on. That's interesting. I was told my Italian friend to never rinse your pasta. Instead, throw some olive oil on it and drain it. Well, I'm not Italian. Maybe that is how the Italians do it. I was only there briefly. Like I went 2 or 3 times for like a week at a time. So, sorry, you saw my husband back there. So I am by no means an Italian expert. I am German and Irish roots. So I would say do what makes you happy for your pasta.
I agree though. If you're going to keep it and reheat it, I think definitely to not have the stickiness, that might help. But if you're eating it all right there, then it's probably not necessary.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things that you just play around with and see what you like. I honestly, like I said earlier, I don't have a rhyme or reason to if I olive oil my pasta or not. So it's whatever whim I'm on. Okay. Well, what do you guys think? Would you try this?
I definitely would.
That's awesome. Oh, I got some big yeses. So exciting. This is a larger group than I am used to, and I'm just wondering, like, I'm gonna actually stop the recording, but I'm wondering what about today's recipe made you want to join on and follow along with me?